What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by a special guest, a return guest, Rob Hill, the Dodgers director of pitching, joins the show. Rob, thank you for your time coming to us from the complex area down in Arizona. Appreciate the time. How you been?
I'm great, Jeff. I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Two-time. Good to be back. Good to be back. Ready to talk about some of the boys.
Yeah, well, hey, there's a lot worse topics I imagine to talk about than the pitching depth that the Dodgers have, not only at the major league level, which as a guy who joined the organization in 2020, I imagine you sort of feel like a proud parent seeing a lot of these guys kind of figuring it out at the major league level, and then there's only about 100 more guys coming up right behind them at the single A, double A, and triple A level. So it's a good time to be the Dodgers director of minor league pitching.
It is. Yeah. No. I mean, I'm very fortunate. It's been crazy. Yeah. I'm not a parent yet. Hopefully, in the next few years, I will be. But like, I mean, I can't even imagine when it's my actual kid. But yeah, definitely. Some days it's like, wow, like it feels like you almost watch these guys grow up. You know, I'm not particularly old, also, so it's even more of like a shock. You know.
Awesome. Well, hey, before we dive in, I joked with you when I invited you on that I wanted to give you some opportunity to take a victory lap here, and I'm going to show a video clip here. 2 years ago, almost to the day, Rob came on the show, and I just need the people to know why I'm so excited that you're back on this show, because 2 years ago, we had you on. We were going to talk minor league pitching prospects. I had like 15 dudes written down in my notes, prospect lists I had scoured. I said, what about this guy? What about this guy? And before, unprompted, you said, hey, hold on a second. There's one guy you're not talking about yet. And I'm going to show the clip. So
Okay.
Give me a second here. And this will give the people the reason why I'm excited. So here we go.
And also that we didn't mention that I want to mention because
good. This was going to be my next question is if there's
Okay.
a guy that I have not asked about, and you take as much time as you want here.
Yes, Gavin Stone.
Okay.
Gavin Stone. I've said this to like 2 or 3 different people who I've talked to over the past few months, but like he is the guy that I don't think people give enough love. He just obviously graduated to double A. He's pitching better now than he was in high A in double A over the past 2 outings. He's walked 2 guys in 10 innings and struck out like 16 in double A for like just right now, right? Over the past 2 years, I think he's striking out like 35% and walking less than 6%. And he threw the most innings in our org last year. He's routinely 94 or 96, has a slider, has a changeup, has a curveball, throws all of them for strikes in any count. Like, I think that just because he might not have like the stature or whatever, I don't know why, but I think that Gavin is like unbelievably good. I think that he's like Knack level pitch execution with just like an absolute, like I said about Kyle Hurd, like he's just a dog up there. Like you look Gavin in the eye in one of his outings and you're like, okay, hey man, I'm going to be over here. Like you have fun with that. So no, I think Gavin Stone like people need to talk about him more. And they need to go watch his outings, and they need to go see it because he's good. He's really special.
So Rob, that was 2 years ago.
I look like I'm in a lot better shape.
Gavin Stone was on 0 prospect lists, literally anywhere you looked. You mentioned this was a guy who was a 5th round pick in the weird 2020 draft. He had made like 1 or 2 starts at the above the high A level at the time of that recording. And fast forward literally 2 years, he's got a sub-3 ERA. He's got 7 wins. He's been incredible at the major league level. So, I mean, did you see this coming? Like when you had that quote, like it felt like a guy who was confident in what he was seeing, and to see it all play out, even with the hiccup last year, it's got to feel pretty good.
No, I mean, it feels great. Like not even for the fact that, you know, it's like something I said or whatever. It's more so just like for him, like with how difficult last year was for him and just the way that he's been able to like come back all the way through that. It's like, did I see, I mean, like, I can't say like I saw exactly this happening, but it's like, I knew there was something different there. You know, he has something different about him, like the demeanor. They talk about it all the time on the broadcast, right? And I know Doc loves him, but it's just, he's a different kind of guy. And I'm really, really happy for him. And just like really happy that he's been able to continue to show the world what he can do. So it's been great to see.
What, have you seen anything different? What was last year sort of just an aberration? I mean, I know there was some talk about he had a little bit of an injury and it messed with his mechanics. I mean, is it? I don't mean to say that's simple, but is it as simple as he just fixed a couple of mechanics and this is the guy that kind of everybody, once the prospect people caught up with it, this is the guy that everyone seemed to be expecting?
Yeah, so I think like it was an interesting year in a lot of ways. I think that the blister thing that he had, like pitching is like milliseconds and millimeters. That's how I like to talk about it a lot, right? It's like one little different thing here, and you can throw X amount more strikes, X amount harder, blah blah blah, blah make your stuff better. One little thing being off, especially in like a tight, like very coordinated system such as Gavin's, can throw off the whole thing.
Mm.
So even though it seemed like a little thing, it kind of like manifested itself, and then it just you talk to a lot of guys. Like I mean, one time I talked to Kevin Brown. He told me that what initially made his career start to go downhill was a bad mound in San Diego, just the way the mound was built, and it changes mechanics this much, and that led to this, and that led to this. It's all these tiny little things. So that definitely didn't help. It kind of set him on like not the right path, but ultimately I think it ended up being a really good thing for him because it just showed him it was the first time he had really struggled in professional baseball, and it forced him to adapt and change and just be like, and because he is the way he is, he was able to, add the two pitches that he added that people talk about, the sinker and the cutter as well, and just like really be able to learn on the fly. Just as a huge thanks to our AAA coaching staff, and as well as obviously the major league guys have helped a ton, had like helped him a ton last year with what he was doing, but. Yeah, I mean that's kind of a long-winded answer, I guess, but like he's just been able to like it definitely was a hiccup of a year because of the initial thing, but it ended up being a good thing because now his throw looks amazing, but he also has two more weapons he can play with, and it's just helped him be a lot more effective.
Philosophically, this is something that I will never be an expert at the level that somebody like you is when it comes to understanding pitching. We've had a bunch of guys come on the show who are way smarter about pitching than I am. One thing that I'm slowly, as a thick-skulled person, picking up on is when you talk sinker and cutter, is the ability of a guy like Gavin Stone to move off of the barrel. Like everybody gets so obsessed with swing and miss, and swing and miss is super important. Don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but a guy like Stone, and I remember having Michael Grove actually on our show, and he talked about it, and he's the guy I want to ask you about in a second. But can you talk through philosophically? Like I imagine a guy like Stone. Maybe I'm off on this, but it's hard to explain to some pitchers who are used to getting so much swing and miss to say no. We actually want you to throw a pitch that like we're almost expecting to get hit, but it's just not going to get hit hard. Like it feels like that's maybe something that's just being talked about more, or is that totally a new concept in the last 3 or 4 years?
I would say honestly, like baseball and I guess like professional sports and just things in general are very cyclical, right? Like that's been the teach for forever. It's right. It's like Sandy Koufax said, I started to become a better pitcher when I stopped trying to make him miss it and started trying to let him hit it, right? Like that's it. There is something to that. What's nice about those two pitch types and a big reason why I think you've seen them kind of blow up a lot more across the league now that not as many guys are throwing, the ride four seams and the sweepers and stuff. So people are still throwing those, but like each pitch has like a job to do. You know what I mean? Like like think about like an arsenal is like a group project that you did in high school, right? Like if you don't have that one kid who, when you don't feel like doing the project is just going to take it over, then what's going to happen, right? Like, okay, you either got to divvy up the work so everybody does a little bit, or you have to, figure out which two people are going to take on the lion's share. So like, I kind of think of arsenals in that way, right? Where it's like, all right, if you have dominant fastball sweeper, okay, great. Those two pitches are like a really good four-seam fastball with a lot of like carry. Is really good for getting like swing and miss and fly balls. Okay. A sweeper, let's say from a right-handed pitcher, is really good versus same side hitters, right? But that's kind of where it's like, oh, we need other things. We need other things to deal with lefties. We need other things to do this. We need other things to get on. Like we need other things to be in the zone, to get balls in play, to limit pitch count, to keep your walk rate down, to like do these sorts of things that are a little bit more, I would say, just not as a big of a focal point over the past few years. Like, and we still want these pitches to be nasty, right? Yeah. But just probabilistically, cutters and sinkers are higher contact rate pitches because they just don't move as much as like ride fastballs and like other pitches like that. So they can just stay on the plane of the barrel for longer. But ideally, if they're thrown to the right locations, which major league pitchers like Gavin Stone he can execute them to the right spots and then get better outcomes more often than not. So.
Yeah. Are you with Stone? Are you surprised? I mean, I maybe surprised is the wrong word as a guy who works for the Dodgers, but from the outside, it's surprising how his changeup usage, this pitch that at one time when he was in like AA, I think it was Keith Law or somebody 60%. Was like, this might be the best changeup in all of professional baseball. Like it was that good. Right. And like his last 2 or 3 starts, it's like his 4th or 5th most used pitch Are you surprised by that, or is that just because the other stuff has gotten better, or he's just picking his spots?
I think it's like a combination of all those things. Like Gavin is a gamer. Like he's gonna go up and do what he has to do to get the job done. Whereas like that's what his dominant strategy like in AA was just like, oh, I can just spam changeups and no one's gonna hit it. So I'm gonna do that, you know? And he's been able to make the adjustment of like, oh, okay, like I learned last year that I can't necessarily just spam changeups and people are gonna swing at it and miss it when it's in the dirt. So I have to like make these adjustments, right? It's like there's a concept in that's just discussed as like the meta, right? Like the meta shifts to like this. It's like 2019 ride fastballs, right? Like 2021, 2022 sweepers. It's just like the meta is like cyclical in baseball. It just like always goes around and around and around. And the people who are like able to adapt their game to whatever the meta is and like be able to address problems that they're going to run into, I think are going to be people that stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. I love it. Well, and I imagine that's why the Dodgers have been so successful as an organization, is because they've got a lot of the smartest people in the world that are thinking about these things and not only probably adapting quickly, but is it safe to say almost trying to predict what the 2025 version of that the dominant pitch is going to be?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think we've seen just like in general across the league. I've just done it for fun, you know, looked up like pitch usage over different years and like watching the sinker usage go like this, like plummet, and then it's slowly rising again. Watching like splitters. I think this year I saw a tweet yesterday from one of my friends who works at Driveline. Like there were 5,000 splitters thrown last year in the big leagues. There were 4,000 and something the year before. And this season there've been like 8,000.
Wow.
So it's just like these pitches, people are learning how to throw them. They're like getting better training. They're getting better feedback, and they're able to like create new weapons seemingly overnight, which is, you know, a huge benefit of having consistent feedback and TrackMan and blah, 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 all that stuff.
I love it. Okay, a few other guys at the major league level. I mentioned Michael Grove. Everybody who watches my show know that I'm biased because he's come on our show a few times. He seems like an amazing dude, and it's a guy that I just want to root for. And so I've always held out hope, and I feel very vindicated over the last month and a half. This guy, I saw a tweet yesterday. His slider, which like was not a dominant pitch like that he sort of, it felt like he was coming up with, was rated as one of like the 5 or 6 expected weighted on base average against or something. It's like one of the 5 best pitches in Major League Baseball that he just found. Like, oh yeah, how about if I just throw this pitch a little bit more and tweak my grip and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What have you seen from Grove and his ability to adapt from being a starter to now being, you know, a high leverage reliever?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Grover, very similarly to Gavin and just like a lot of those guys, right? He's a gamer. Like he's not going to be like stubborn and like, oh, I need to throw ego heaters. Oh, I need to do this. He's like, tell me what I need to do and I will do it. Like, and so one thing that I thought was cool, and it's been well documented, like in the media and things like that. Like he's only throwing 2 seams now as his primary fastball. So it's like 2-seam cutter, and then like obviously a ton of sliders. And that was something that he like brought to us, which I thought was really cool. Cause he was like, look, like my fastball is somewhat inconsistent. It doesn't like necessarily go where I want, blah, blah, blah. I can get hit, this, that, the other. And he's like, I want to go with this approach because I think it'll work, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, yeah, man, like go for it. You know, like he's done nothing but prove that he's like a competitor. And sure, maybe he hasn't had perfect results over the past couple of years, but it doesn't really matter a lot of the time when it's like you bet on a guy like Michael. You know, you bet on a guy like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's been just like really fun to watch his progress, like really cool. And I think it's something that is like suited to him because he's just such like a beast competitor. Like, I don't know if you probably don't know this, but like one of my friends who went to West Virginia with him said that like whenever he would start, that everyone would just call it Grove Day. Like it's not Friday, it's Grove Day. Like it's Grove Day. So it's like cool to see him still embody that sort of aura out there. You know, sometimes twice in a series, 3 times in a series. Like it's been fun.
Maybe you can shed some light on this. I'm like a guy like Grove. The ERA we know hasn't been awesome the last couple of years, and you could nitpick it a little bit and say like, well, he kind of got left out to dry a few times because he needed to eat some innings that the team just needed him to eat, and so he had a lot of like 6 or 7 earned run outings on his inside the organization. Obviously, you've got numbers that are far better than just looking at a guy's ERA, but like, how does a team kind of evaluate with somebody like Grove, who from the outside fans are looking like this guy's ERA stinks because, you know, we don't fully understand everything. And yet inside, it doesn't seem like they ever wavered on him.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, I think a lot of it is like, it's not even really like said. It's almost within like the culture, if that makes sense. It's almost kind of embedded in just like what we're trying to do. And it comes from the top. Like just the amount of optimism that we have for our ability to get the upside out of like every guy and like find their best version, like in a relentless like pursuit of that is pretty remarkable, honestly. Like the amount of faith and trust that is given to us and to the players is awesome. And like I think a lot of it just like comes from that, I guess. Like
Love it.
the other piece I'd say is like I'm pretty sure his like fielding independent pitching, like his FIP, like is like significantly lower than his ERA right now. So maybe fans just need to like learn their stats better. But like that's like part of it too. And just like, I mean, Fangraphs, great website. People should go check it out. Fangraphs.com. Shout out Fangraphs. But you can see a lot more of that stuff there and just like the underlying things. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the best answer.
I love it. Yeah. 3.28 FIP this year, 3.92 FIP last year, compared to a 6.13 and a 4.72 ERA.
Right.
So love that. Okay, a couple more guys at the major league level. Landon Knack, well, I guess was at the major league level. 4 starts, 2.6 ERA, whip under 1. Knack, as admittedly not a scout, not a prospect expert. From the outside, I always loved the idea of Landon Knack, a guy that just like the command that he had. I think it was the strikeout to walk ratio his senior year was like my favorite draft stat like ever. It's like, oh, he walked one guy and struck out like 51 or something.
Yeah. I think it was 51-1. Yeah.
It's amazing. And he had to have been so pissed the one walk that he had. Like, I can't even imagine how mad he was.
Yeah.
So I just love that this is a guy, again, like, he was never on these top prospect lists. Like he was always like, command, like stuff's fine, but like never like an elite prospect. And yet makes his way to the major leagues and then is awesome for 4 starts, gets sent back down because the Dodgers have like 100 pitchers right now. But talk to me about like his development and maybe what you saw in those 4 starts at the major league level that give you optimism, reason to believe like, hey, that wasn't just a fluke. This is a guy that could be pitching at the major league level for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the biggest rate limiter with a lot of like starting pitchers is like the command part, right? Like, and it's always that like difficult trade-off of like, okay, it feels like a lot of people think that there's a strict divide between like you either throw hard and have good stuff or you throw strikes. And it's like, no, like sure, Landon doesn't necessarily throw like super hard, but he throws like hard enough. But then you augment that velocity and like that stuff with his ability to execute, and you have something that's completely different, right? Like you meld those two things together, and it's like, oh, so this guy can just like mix and match. He can deal with any sided hitter. He can deal with any sort of swing with his arsenal in the way that he can like play it. He can go front to back. He can go vertical attack with fastball curveball. He can go more east-west with like fastballs to his arm side and then like sliders down. It's like there's a lot of like things he can mix and match and kind of become like a magician up there to a certain extent. So like that's where I think a lot of it can come from. And then like the pure stuff by itself is like good. Like his fastball has like above average carry, like his changeup has great sell and like great arm speed, even though maybe the metrics wouldn't tell you that. It's similar to like a Drew Thorpe who just debuted yesterday. And then like his slider, it has like, you cannot see it. Like it looks like his fastball and you just can't see it. And then the curveball has actually been a pretty pleasant development. It's come out a little bit harder this year. So like it's also plays very well off of his fastball. So I mean, yeah, I think like Landon has always been just a joy to watch because like when he has the ball, you don't have, there's like a weird phenomenon where certain people have the ball and you're kind of like nervous. You're like watching it, you're like, okay, like let's see. But it's like, oh, Landon started tonight. All right, cool. Let's strap in. Where's the popcorn? Let's watch this thing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of how Landon's been able to take it down, and he's been ready for this opportunity. So I'm glad that he's been making the most of it.
Love it. Okay, one other guy that's kind of bounced up and down, Kyle Hurt. He's an interesting one for me because, again, I almost have a philosophical question, and it's a question I've talked with Michael Grove about too. You've got a guy in Hurt who still has the potential to be a major league starting pitcher, and yet they look at him right now, and I imagine are saying he also could be one of our 5 or 6 best relief pitchers at the major league level right this second. Now, I know he was hurt, that kind of a thing, but organizationally, how do you balance? Like what do the conversations look like where it's, well, we want to make sure that we still leave open the possibility because starting pitchers are more valuable than relief pitchers. And if he can make it as a starter, that's better for us than him being like a 7th, 8th, even 9th inning guy. While at the same time saying we're also trying to win the World Series right now. And Kyle Hurt is electric in a bullpen role. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's this is probably a question that has plagued many a GM for many years. and it's definitely something we talk about a lot. Like, because there's so many examples of both sides of the coin, right? Of like, man, if we would have made this guy a reliever, maybe he would have had a chance, or man, if we would have like really stuck with this guy as a starter, like what could have been, right? Like, and I think that the best answer is you never really know until you see it.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's like we do something intentionally, and Don Alexander had this up as our pitching coordinator of logistics. He's a big proponent of this, and the major league staff as well obviously has us do this. But we have almost all of our starters make a couple relief appearances during the year, no matter what, right? And I know people have probably talked to you about that, but it's like it's something that I think we kind of always have on the table, if that makes sense, because it's like there is also a reality where a lot of guys' debuts might not be a start. A lot of, even if they have been starters, because that's just kind of the way things shake out for that day, or that's the way that the rotation looks. And so I think there's a lot of different angles to look at it from. With Kyle, I think that just like kind of has been the conversation of just like, okay, like he could take down bulk or whatever, but like, is his talent best served doing that, or is it best served like coming out of the pen and being 98 to 100 with a 70 grade changeup? It's kind of like, well, that sounds pretty good. Like,
yeah, totally.
So I think that's. I mean, I haven't obviously been fully with those conversations because a lot of that's above me, but that's like more or less the message from it.
Love it. Yeah, Pepio was the first guy I had on who was talking to me about that. Just the fact, because I remember asking him like, "Hey, are you ready if it's this opener thing and then you're a bulk guy or something?" And he's like, "Yeah, we actually do this intentionally and come in as relievers." I'm like, "Well, that kind of makes some sense." So,
the guys don't like it usually, but in a year or two when they debut and it's out of the bullpen, they're going to be like, "Wow, thank you guys."
Yeah, thank goodness the first time I tried this was in Tulsa and not in Wrigley Field.
Right. Can you tell that to them? Can you tell that to them when they get all upset?
You give me their contact info. I'll happily reach out.
All right.
Let's do a couple prospects. River Ryan. Fangraphs had him as the number one prospect in the entire organization, pitching or hitting. Everyone's got him at least as the number one pitching prospect, it seems like. He's just made a couple rehab outings. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's been fair for the guys that he's been pitching against in like high A in the rookie league. 4 innings, no hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts so far.
It's been a little abusive for sure.
Yeah. Poor guys. Eventually, he's going to work his way back up. How good is this guy? Like, what's the ceiling on him?
River's a freak. I mean, like a legitimate, like an athletic freak. Like they talk about those kind of dudes. Like, how they talk about Mookie? Like, oh, he's good at everything, right? Like he's good at everything. It's like River's like that guy. Like he's just good at everything. Like one day he was like super excited about how one of his bullpens went a few weeks ago, and he just runs into the weight room and does like a back handspring and just like a backflip and lands and does karate kicks. And I'm like, that was the most athletic thing I've ever seen. Like he's just like unbelievably adaptive and like athletic, and just has great feel for like his body, like very coordinated, like all those things. Also, he's pretty smart, and not smart's the wrong word. I guess like he knows how to make the ball do certain things. Like he can make the ball go right, left, down, up, straight, whatever. And he's like pretty relentless in his pursuit of like what he's going after. He's like very determined. So like, I mean, I think Rivers is an absolute beast. Like I feel like I always say the same thing about our guys, but like I can't come to I can't come to any other conclusion than that.
So one follow up on the River Ryan comment there. I'm looking at, this is a guy who pitched 7 innings at AAA last year. Obviously he's rehabbing. It's only June. Based on everything you just said, based on where he sits on prospect lists, like, is this a type of guy who could see major league action as early as 2024?
I mean, I don't think it's off the table. I mean, you mentioned earlier, we're trying to win World Series, right? Like that's the goal. Every year is like, we're trying to win. If the front office and the team, and there's a need and we have the determination that he's in a good enough spot to help us win, then like, I see no reason why not. Like, I think, with the way that, cause like the minor league rosters got constrained more, there's always a need, we go through pitchers, we need guys to help. And like, I can definitely see a world in which that could happen.
Okay. Crazy. A few more names to run through you. And then obviously after 2 years ago, I'm going to leave you some time in case there's anybody I haven't asked. I have to ask about this guy, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name. Reynaldo Yin. Did I get that right on the name pronunciation?
Yes.
TrackMan confirmed 104 mile an hour pitch. Lance Brzdowski, who's a guy we've had on the show. You might be somebody in the
I know Lance. Well, yeah.
he was tweeting about how it's not just velocity, it's the vertical. It's not just like, oh, that's 104 miles an hour. It's like it's 104 miles an hour with great vertical brake and from a pretty solid release point as far as that combo. He's got 8 walks, so it's not like this guy's going to be closing games in the major leagues, in the next few months. But 104 miles an hour is pretty insane.
I was bummed because I was actually going to Rancho for that series and I missed that game by one day. I was like, but whatever. I mean,
what's he regularly sitting? Like, is he sitting like 102 normally?
Oh, I mean, most of his outings, he's, like 99 to 102, basically. Yeah, like 99 to 102. And then he had that week where he hit 104 like a couple times. It's crazy. It's like the most absurd thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. We know that in Major League Baseball, you mentioned, it's not just having good stuff. It's not just throwing hard. Like,
of course,
there's a lot that needs to happen.
Without
He's at Rancho. He has 8 walks and 11 2/3. But is this the type of guy that all of a sudden he throws 104 and it's sort of like, wait a minute, the calculus just changed a little bit on what the feeling is on a guy like this?
And I think that like just generally like Yin's growth over the past, I think 3 years now has been just like remarkable. Yeah. Like we signed him more or less as like a 94-ish guy, comes in, he's a beast already, but it's like he just didn't really know how to move and he hadn't really had much like instruction. So the guys down at Campo Las Palmas in the Dominican just went to work with him, like with helping his delivery, doing sorts of things. And he really, obviously held up his end of the deal. Like he just did everything that like we ever asked him to do. And he's been an absolute joy. So, I think that like his slider's come a long way. His fastball command is significantly better this year, although like the walks are still like a thing. The ways he's getting to those walks is different than they used to be, if that makes sense. Like it's not scatter shot left, scatter shot right, dirt slider. It's like, okay, just missed. Okay, foul ball, competitive at bat. Okay, sweet. You walk him on 3-2 after 7 pitches, like that's progress. Like we're moving in the right direction. So
I love it. Yeah, not all walks created equal. As
100%.
A 4-pitch walk is very different than an 8-pitch walk.
Exactly.
Another reliever, Edgardo Enriquez. He's only throwing 102 miles an hour. He's only topping out at 102. So what's the point? Even just recently promoted to AA. Had Tommy John surgery last year. Bounces back at 22 years old and is striking out 49% of guys he's facing. Talk to me a little bit. Enriquez is actually a guy as a 19-year-old that I asked you about 2 years ago. So it's kind of fun to see his name pop back on this list despite the Tommy John.
Yeah. Edgardo, he made his AA debut today, actually. I don't know if you had seen it, but I think he went 1.1 with like 2 strikeouts. First guy he faces in AA. I think he's like 3 years young for the level or something crazy, like the average player, and just like fastball 101, fastball 102, fastball 101, just take a seat. Like comes in runners on second and third in a 2-0 ball game, I'm pretty sure, with 2 outs, and just punches a guy out, ends the inning, goes back out, throws another scoreless. Like, wow. Like the amount of growth Edgardo's undergone, just in terms, not even like, he's always been mature. He's always been, able to like lock in and like do his thing. I think what he's been able to help himself do is just not try to be too big in certain moments, right? Like not try to do too much cool, like whatever. And just the amount of like dedicated work he put in during his rehab with our rehab pitching coordinator, Ezra Bai, down in Arizona, and just like the whole crew down there with the strength staff, like they got his body right. They got him more coordinated with his movements. Like, I think that there's just so many hands in his story. And he's just been like a sponge, right? Like he's just taken everything in from Joel Peralta's around, like helping her out, like all kinds of people. So, and again, he's another guy where it's like his fastball command has gotten significantly better. Obviously, you don't have to command it perfectly when you're throwing 101. Remember that, kids. But it has gotten much better. It's like he's not missing to like the bad areas of the zone as much to the guys. His slider development and like feel for his slider, and like now he's throwing a little bit of a cutter to help him just get some action a little bit easier from left-handed hitters. It's just been all those things kind of manifesting together with like the mind that he already had, and then now he's healthy. So hopefully he continues to do what he's been doing.
Awesome. Well, we're running out of time. I had 2 more names on my list, Maddux Bruns and Jackson Ferris, but I do want to leave you some time to talk about if there's a guy that I'm not saying repeat the Gavin Stone 2 years from now who's going to have a sub-3 ERA at the major league level that nobody's talking about yet. But whether it's Ferris, whether it's Bruns, or whether it's sort of rapid fire on any of them, go for it.
I mean, I can talk. I'll go quick. I'll go quick Maddux, quick Jackson, and then I'll think about. While I'm doing that, I'll have the background processes run on who I want to bring up. Maddux is he's been working through some stuff. He was off to a great start this year. Had a little bit of a hiccup, but I mean he'll be back doing his thing soon. Like very happy with how he's progressed. We like did some things kind of adjusting where he was on the rubber, and it actually helped like a lot. It helped with his like lines on his pitches, and it's just been like honestly great to see, and just like his growth and maturity and mentality up there on the mound. It's like he's slowly getting away from the default like, all right, fastball. It's like, no, man, like that just clearly is not the best pitch here. And it was funny because we were actually joking about that today, so I had to bring that one up. And then quickly to jump to Ferris, he's like, wow, I love the fact that we were able to get Jackson. Like he's been great, fantastic, amazing to work with. He's just I know I've said sponge like 5 times in the past 5 minutes, but Jackson is a sponge. Like this dude is like asking questions like, hey, what do you got on this? Hey, like, is this right? Am I doing this the right way? Is this the right way to think about this? Is this how I should hold this? Is this the I'm just like, dude, I love this. Like, it's great. Like he is like the perfect embodiment of someone who is like wanting other people to be involved in his process and is like, but is also willing to say, hey, I actually really like, I don't want to do that right now, but like, let's talk about it. Like, so it's the maturity that he has is like, well, I think he just turned 20 is pretty cool. And he's been putting together some pretty good outings the last few weeks. He's really been clicking. So I'm pretty excited for him.
Love it. All right. And then is there a guy that just being around, and it doesn't have to be somebody who's going to be some future guy, but just somebody that you look at from inside and you're kind of like, I don't understand why he's not on the list of guys I'm getting asked about, or he's not on the list of top 40 prospects in the organization, or whatever these lists are that are out there.
Yeah, I think the guy who's kind of like a bit under the radar, I think some people are starting to see him maybe a little bit, but I just like, man, I love watching him throw is Samuel Sanchez.
Okay.
Maybe you know the name, maybe you don't.
It's new to me.
He just got to the States. He's from Venezuela. He was at the DR complex last year. He's 18 and a half, I think. He's maybe 5'11", 155 pounds. But man, like you'd think he's 6'6", 250 by just like the way he carries himself. Like it is unbelievable. His like presence on the mound, his like presence with like his work, it's beyond his years for sure. And it's like 4-pitch mix, command of like a fastball. It's like 94 to 97 with like good carry. He has a little bit of a curveball. He has like a changeup that like he just learned during spring training, and he faced a literal all lefty lineup last week against the Guardians here in Arizona, and the changeup was like relatively new pitch, and he was just basically spamming fastball, changeup, couple sliders, and I think he punched out like 5 in like 3 innings with like 2 hits and like a run, and like it was just because he threw like the wrong pitch to a guy. It was like really impressive. I think that the week before he faced the same team, punched out 7 in 4 innings with like no walks, and like, so I mean, he's like a little spitfire up there, and he's been like so fun to watch. So I think he's a guy that I mean I could see just as he continues to develop physically and keep doing his thing. Like it's been pretty impressive what he's been able to do so far.
Love it. Well, Rob, thank you as always for your time. Again, Rob Hill, Director of Minor League Pitching for the Dodgers. You can find him on Twitter. He's got good content there, always retweeting. If you want to keep up with prospects, Rob's a good guy to follow because oftentimes he'll repost some of the updates on some of those guys. So I greatly appreciate it. But Rob, best of luck the rest of the season, and try and enjoy the heat down there in Arizona.
Oof, I'll try. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Again, this is DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. Enjoy the rest of your day. As always, go Dodgers.